Hey everybody, Tom Fisher with Fishstone here. It's a beautiful day here at the studio. Today I got a couple exciting things to share with you. We have our stretch form fabric and we have our shoulder flow drain assembly. So depending on what time of the day it is, why don't you go ahead and grab yourself a cup of coffee, make yourself a cocktail, sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Alright, so as promised, we got a couple items to share with you today. One is the stretch form fabric and then the shoulder flow drain assembly, and we'll go into each of these. Stretch form fabric is a stretchable material that allows you to do fabric form molds very easily. Traditionally, you'd have to place a fabric down, then use a resin, let it cure, do a lot of sanding, a lot of waxing, and so on and so forth. Where stretch form is, it's simply a fabric. It's stretchable. It has a membrane on there that keeps it waterproof, so it makes a great concrete mold material. As you can see, it stretches quite a bit in one direction, and in the other direction it stretches a little bit, but not as much. But it definitely stretches almost double its length in one direction here. And it's a very durable, very durable product. You'll notice that there's more of a fabric side, more of a flat, dull side, and that is not the side that we cast on. We want to definitely make sure that we cast on the shiny side. Put that off to the side. The next item, for anyone that knows Mark Malonis with Luke Works, he's been in the industry an awful long time. He's been a long-time friend and customer, and he's been making these molds. He's come up with a pretty slick system. We'll get into some great detail later, but he makes a system that you can make slot drains. Very simple, comes with everything you need. As mentioned, we're going to get into this a little bit later once we get the mold made. One of the things you need is you need to have a base material, and that base material can be a sheet of plywood, it can be a sheet of melamine, it can be a sheet of MDF board. Really doesn't have any specifics, it just needs to be something that you can staple the fabric to and stretch the material to. So some ideas for sink molds would be simply find a piece of PVC pipe, cut a board that's basically the size of the sink mold that you want, put the pipe wherever you want the drain to be, and then you have to get a sheet of fabric that will cover the mold area, basically lay it over it. Now if you have a mold that's very long one direction and very shallow the other direction, what I like to do is I like to make sure that the stretchable side kind of goes the shorter distance and the non-stretchable side goes the long distance. And the reason for that is, especially if you want to keep some harder, crisper lines, if you have the flexible side, chances are that the concrete's going to weigh it down, and you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. So if you can create the large flex side going the short direction, that would be ideal in my opinion. One option is you can take a PVC pipe, hot glue it, somehow adhere it to that board, stretch the fabric over it. You're going to end up stapling it. You'll see what we're talking about that in a minute. And another one of the really nice drain assemblies that Mark has put together is the standard drain. Basically just simply put that on there. We're going to end up putting some sidewalls on here after it's stretched. Of course, we have to stretch it first, and then there you have your sink mold. It's ready to start casting concrete. It's that simple. Another idea and something we might work on today is to create a slot drain. And a slot drain can be something as simple as a straight board that we can taper. We can make a different shape to it. We can make a curve to it if we want to. We can take some type of a flexible plastic, put our drain there, and we can even heat this up, bend this, twist it, shape it, make some really clever and creative systems for a nice concrete sink. So with that said, we'll get out our staple gun and we'll start stapling some up. All right, so what you saw me doing there is I was just making some design to make some sort of an element to create the negative space for our sink. We're going to put a slot drain that's going to go right in the center here. With the slot drain assembly that we're using, it requires a 1/2 inch wide by 3 inch flat spot for the assembly to attach to. Then I just simply created a couple curves, offset it to one side, and now I'm trying to fit my fabric on here, which is going to go ahead and stretch over all this. So again, you can mess around, do different things. I like the less stretch to go lengthwise and the more stretch to go the shorter direction. And you want to make sure that you have plenty of overhang so you have enough material to pull. You know, the material's not too overly expensive, so it's no problem there. The key here is to make sure that you have some sharp scissors or a very sharp razor knife. And since this is 60 inches wide, I'm going to go ahead and cut off a good bit, and that'll be enough for our other sink. So basically it's going to be a 30-inch piece by whatever length this is. And by trimming it, it makes it a little easier to work with too. All right, so now we have our material cut to the shape and size that we want. And now it's just a matter of stretching the material over the form. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to start at one end, right in the center of the length. And then on the other center, we're going to pull it, staple it, come over here to this center, pull it, and then just kind of keep working our way from the centers, working all the way out. So the center is all the way out. And to do that, you can use an electric stapler, a normal hand stapler. I'm just going to be using a pneumatic stapler because it's a little easier. And we are going to be putting in quite a few staples. Run a quick test, make sure the depth is set okay. And if you're doing small pieces, it might be nice to have this up on a Lazy Susan. I'm going to see if we can prop it up with just the box. Might make it a little easier to spin around and access the sides. And that way we're actually, able to stretch it more. Just make sure you have the right overhang to it. And just starting on one side, we're just going to shoot a few staples in here. And we're pretty much putting them right next to each other. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be stretching this. You want to stretch it pretty taut. You'll see it's going to wrinkle and stuff, but as we start pulling it out, it's going to even it all out. Now, one of the big questions is how much do we allow it to droop and to sag? If you let less in there, the weight of the concrete will end up pushing it down, and you almost get like a flat. It almost goes straight down. So and this one, being that it's fairly long, we want to make sure we pull it nice and taut. As I said, you can pull this material pretty tight. Kind of want almost, you can hear the drum sound to it. We'll put in a couple staples. Then we're going to come over here to the center. We're going to again pull it fairly taut. Check our firmness. And then we're going to spin her around and get this side. Again, we're going to check our tension. So see, that's a little soft, so I want to pull it a little tighter. That's pretty much what I want right there. Something else to consider when you're making your mold is how you're going to be pouring the concrete. Are you going to spray it with a thin layer, make it nice and light? If you spray it, it won't depress as much. If you're using a a self-consolidating or a heavy pour is going to weigh more, so it's going to be pushing down on the material more. So now I'm going to just continue to work my way out from the corners. So back to this end, pulling and stapling. Come on to the other side. I was to the right of the center. Now I'm going to come to the left of the center. Spinning around to the opposite side, and again pulling, testing my sag. And then we're going to come back to the center over here. Left of center, right center. Down. Pulling. Passing my stretch. Going back to this end. Give me a good pull. Give me a good pull again. Now the staples that you put in here is kind of how much pulling back. More staples you need. As I mentioned before, it's very durable. You think about it, you rip from staples, but pulling is so tight. And you're going to come up with your own techniques and different ways you'll use material, how you apply it. Back here. So we're just continuing our process. We're pulling it. Tightening our tension. Pulling it, checking our tension. So that's feeling pretty good. It's pretty tight. Even if I did a heavy pour, that's not going to sag too badly on me. All right, so we have it all pulled except for this last little corner here. So I'm just going to pull the last bit of the corner and finish her off. All right. Well, I think we're done stapling it. Give it a feel, make sure everything feels good, and it does. Now what we need to do is we need to trim the excess off on here. So, because what we're going to end up doing, and you can be creative and come up with your own solutions, but we're going to be putting some edges on here, and we'll be screwing it through the side. So what I have is just some sharp scissors, and we're just going to kind of take it right below where the staples are. Now in this mold I have it pulled pretty tight, I think. You can certainly make it very loose depending on your design or your style, and then that'll cause it to droop so much more when it goes in. So if you decided to make yourself a cocktail to watch this, I'd love to know what cocktail you made. For me, it's a Manhattan. I like a Woodford Manhattan. Let us know in the comments. Let us know what your favorite cocktail is, whether it be an iced tea or maybe a Long Island iced tea. And there we go. So again, there is our mold for the sink. I do have some strips of melamine cut down, and they look like they should be long enough. We'll have to cut them down a little bit. That will end up just daisy chaining them around. We'll attach it, and we'll hook up our drain assembly, and we'll spray it. So I'll go ahead and get these side rails cut down the length. We'll get out some screws and we'll screw them in and see what we can come up with. All right, so let's get zoomed in here, and we're going to talk about the assembly that we're going to be using to create the opening for the water to flow through. As you can see, we finished screwing all the sides to the mold. We're going to come back with some caulk. We're going to caulk all the corners just to make it super watertight. You don't necessarily have to caulk, but you're going to end up getting some ugly corners. So if you're planning on doing a little heavier sanding or a grinding afterwards, there's probably no need to caulk. But if you are planning on having more of a cream style finish, you're going to definitely want to caulk and fill these corners. But now I want to talk to you a little bit about the shoulder flow kit. Take a look at what all comes in the kit. You can see it comes with quite a bit. Comes with a, let's see, this is the drill guide that we're going to use here to drill some holes. It comes with the appropriate size drill bit for these pins, which are going to then drop in here, which will hold our assembly in place. It comes with the actual portion that the drain assembly will fit around. And then it also comes with stainless steel inserts for when you're all finished. You just simply bend these tabs down and then you have a nice, clean, very professional looking stainless steel grid so stuff doesn't fall down the drain as you're using it. So to get started, this kit comes with 3 different drain assemblies. We're only going to use one, so let's go ahead and just grab one set there. We don't need all these pins because we're only using 1, not 3. So throw those back in the box. We'll get our drill bit that comes with the kit and our drill. And so this goes on here, and we're going to be drilling 3 holes. Now, typically this will fit right over a piece of 1/2-inch stock. So if you're using just 1/2-inch stock, let's say you build your mold out of MDF board and you did an epoxy coat. So this drain assembly isn't exclusive to stretch form fabric. This can be used with pretty much any type of slot drain assembly that you want. So if you were going to build a ramp style sink, you could build it out of MDF board, epoxy coat it. You could build it out of foam. Use some drywall mud to fill it in, then epoxy coat it, etc. Needless to say, this fits over a 1/2-inch piece. Being that we have the stretch form on here, it isn't going to go straight down. So what we're going to have to do is our best is to get it on there and give it you can give it a little snug push, but it's not going to stay on. It's going to want to pop right off. So we're going to go ahead and just give it a little snug hold. And while I'm holding that in the center, I'm going to take my drill bit and drill a hole for those pins. This guide will help ensure that you have everything right smack dab in the center. Now you can drill through the stretch form without it tearing. If you're concerned at all, you can touch the spots where you're going to drill through with just a touch of like super glue or something, and that'll harden just that section so it won't tear. But as you'll see, this won't be too bad. So there's my 3 holes. And that's for these pins to drop in. So we want to put in the 2 outermost pins, not the center one, but the 2 outermost ones. And then that's going to just basically sit on there. This is going to sit on here. All right, so now that we have our 3 holes pre-drilled, we have this is what creates the opening. So it's the size of the opening in the sink. It fits over those 2 nubs. We don't put in the center because there's a screw that's going to go through there. Go ahead and affix that. As far as the actual drain assembly, the plumbing fitting goes, is we're going to end up wanting to have or the plumber or whoever installs it will have a fitting similar to this. It's 1.25 inches. It's a threaded. So what we do is we come up with something that has a female thread inside that we're going to end up burying in the concrete. There's a couple different options, and we're still working on those. As far as we're trying to get something custom made that'll be a little bit better than a PVC piece. But typically what we're going to do is we're going to affix this in here, kind of give it a little spin. And ideally you want it so the tapered side is coming just to the end of that. Can affix that onto there. And then to secure this, we're going to use a cabinet, something with a big fat head. The fatter the head, the better. You can also use a fender washer and a screw that will go down in there. In this case, we're just going to use the cabinet screw. We'll drop that in there, and we'll need an extension to screw it in. Or actually, what we can do is we'll affix it without putting that on there. We can put that on later. And get it so it's nice and snug on there. And if you want, you can put a little Vaseline or something on there to help slide this on. Just don't put on too much, make it too slippery, because then this will just slide right down. It has a nice snug fit to it. And then what we're going to either need to do is you can put this in here, you put some tape around here when we're casting the concrete, because we don't want to get any concrete inside these internal threads. So basically this piece will be embedded into the concrete itself. All right, so to wrap things up for the mold making, to make this mold, we're just going to blow this out. We're going to give it, wax the corners, and then we're going to let it sit overnight. And then we're just going to take some silicone, we're going to caulk all the corners, and doing that we'll take a little wax. We're just going to wax the inside corners. And then we're going to caulk the corners nice and heavy. Then with our caulk beading tools, we'll create a nice radius in there. And the nice thing about this mold is, if you're looking at the clock, is, you know, even taking the time to try to start and stop the video and get things set up properly, I'd say it was less than 40 minutes to make this mold. And in fact, I could probably do it in about 20 minutes if I was just focusing on this. So again, just throwing a little wax on the base, on the sidewalls. That's good. And then we're going to take our caulk, we're going to caulk all the corners and get our caulk beading. All right, so just to recap real quick what we did today, we went ahead and we built a slot drain, I guess you'd call it a ramp sink, I'm not sure what you call it. We developed something with a 3-inch flat spot for our drain assembly to go onto, built a couple of slight ramps to it to give it some crisp lines in the concrete, so when the concrete sits you'll see a little bit of a crisp line on there. We installed our drain assembly. We screwed all the sides to the side rails. We decided to caulk. We used our caulk beading tools, and then tomorrow when we come back, because we waxed the sides, the excess will just peel right out, and it'll be ready to cast. So again, geez, I think this was really more like a half an hour. You know, somewhere plan a half an hour to an hour to build a mold like this. You could probably do it a lot quicker if you really wanted to. Creativity's the limit. Here I'll bring a sample of a piece that I made the other day, just for a wall tile. So this was just a board. We put a little squiggly line with some raised spots and low spots to it. And this one we didn't caulk, but you can see it kind of gives you some nice kind of a cool wave pattern to it. So that could be a wall tile, could be just about anything, wall cladding. So endless possibilities. Have fun with it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.